The last heist released by Rockstar for GTA 5 Online was 5.5 years ago in December of 2020, at the time that this video is being recorded. And everything can easily lead us to believe that this is one of the last major updates for GTA 5 Online. I really fucking hope it is, because this was truly the definition of a cash grab. And obviously everything made by a business, a game, a corporation, to an extent should be made with the intention of making money back. I understand that. And honestly, with how willing Rockstar's consumer base just spends money, I can't really truly blame them for releasing just anything at this point. It's kind of like how, you might have a really big artist and they get to a certain point where it doesn't really matter what they drop because people are going to listen to it anyway. That's kind of, I feel like, what Rockstar is. They can drop any bullshit item or thing, convince you that it's worth this amount of money, and motherfuckers will go and pay that amount of money. This heist was clearly a bunch of throwaway content and had literally zero innovation. This video isn't going to be about the nerfs and things like that and like my initial thoughts on everything, because that was what I covered in the last GTA 5 video that I did. But for this video in particular, I want to start by going back to 2015. See, before we even go any further, we got to go back to the early days when heists first became a thing. Up until this point, we didn't really have too many options of making money. It was really just contact missions. But once they dropped the heist update, they became the most efficient way to make money. And although they had their own problems, and by modern day standards they're outdated, I will say at the very least they were all unique. When you play Fleesa, Prison Break, Humane Labs, or even shitty ass Series A funding, you feel like you're playing a few different heists. Got the same thing reskinned, resold, and repackaged to you. They all have their own personalities. And I know I didn't mention Pacific Standard yet, but I'm gonna get to that in a second. Anyways, I remember it wasn't always the easiest thing in the world to get 4 of my friends to commit to doing a heistathon, because I was about my paper. I wasn't always trying to fuck around and play slasher or power play or some bullshit ass game mode. I wanted to make money. I wanted to get the shit that I wanted in GTA. That's how I operated when I first started playing this game. And I had one friend in particular that was relatively new to the game that would spam Fleesa with me. And while it was on cooldown, we would do CEO work and make some money that way. See, buying these heists and stuff at this point was not that expensive. You could get a decent high-rise or high-end apartment for around 150k to 200k. Nowadays, you can make that instantly with any one of the businesses in the game. So at the time, yeah, that might have seemed like a lot. Once you got it though and you had access to heists, the world was yours. You could do a whole lot now. But the reason why we would spam the Fleesa so much, because it was unique from the others, being that it was a 2-man heist. It wasn't a lot of commitment that you needed, and you can do it all in less than an hour and maybe make about like anywhere from 70 to 100k depending on how you split up the money, something like that. But going to the Pacific Standard heist now, for the mid 2010s, $1.2 million in GTA 5 was a lot of fucking money to split between 4 people, or to even keep just for yourself. If you decided you wanted to like do a heist and your friends were just gonna help you make the money, then you could do it that way too. And that sounds good on paper until you realize that there's a small caveat here. Rockstar was also trying to sell this shitty ass bike called the Electro. And one of the coolest features at the time with the Electro was the fact that it had a boost, except the boost fucking sucked. It wasn't like a modern day boost in a Vigilante and a Scramjet and an Oppressor Mark II and an Oppressor Mark I shit and a fucking Rocket Voltic. This was a fake ass dumbass boost that didn't actually do anything, and the bike itself sucked ass. Handling was bad, top speed was bad, acceleration was bad. There was no reason to have this bike, and guess what? It also went for $1 million. That's before you did the heist. Once you completed the Pacific Standard, it would drop down to like 700,000 something. I forget the exact number, maybe close to like 750 or 800. But no, it doesn't stop there, because there's more. Before we go any further, I want you to first look at this scene right here. This scene of Noose showing up in front of the bank because they're ready to fucking smoke your ass because you accidentally killed a hostage. Keep this scene in mind because we're going to talk about this later. But going back to what I was saying with Electros, yeah, they fucking sucked. But guess what sucked more? The fact that you had to use these bikes in this heist. And on top of that, there was a feature that they added to where on this last heist, when you take damage now in this heist, you lose money for the final payout. And to take the dollop of shit and put it on top of this shitty ice cream cone, you also had to drive these bum ass bikes around. So yeah, basically these bikes sucked, the boost sucked, the handling sucked, cops are shooting at you, there's roadblocks. I remember the first time we completed this heist, I was playing with my hooligan friends and we fucked up so many times and we didn't realize that we can just reset. So when we played, we ended up taking home around like 590k for the final payout because we kept dying. That bike sucked, no one knew how to use them yet, people were still inexperienced in the game. And it's crazy because in a sense that feature of, a cop shooting you and you losing money. I mean, I guess you could say there's some realism there, but of all features that we can have realism in, that's the one that we choose to do, the one that causes us to lose money for no apparent reason, except for the fact that they just want to fucking pinch pennies and make it so that, yeah, we'll add this way to make money, but we'll make it really fucking difficult just to make you a little frustrated so that you go and buy an $8 million shark card for $100, which is what people usually did, or they just modded their accounts and got banned a few months later. But this type of shit with the money in the duffel bags, it would return later and become a lot more prominent in other heists. For example, in the Cayo Perico heist, which was one of the best money making methods before the nerf, and I mean technically still is, it was the same shit. And they also made it more difficult because yes, even though you can do it solo or duo or trio, you didn't have to have 4 people, you also had a capacity for your duffel bag. So you could only steal a certain amount of items. But let's say hypothetically you were doing it solo and you had about 1.2 mil. When you got outside and you got shot, you would lose money, but that didn't free up space in your bag. That just made it so that you lost money, which doesn't make any sense. And to add to the fact that there was just so much tedium with the Cayo Perico heist for no reason, like why do I have to do the same stupid ass scope out thing every single time? You're telling me the guy that runs this island isn't gonna see eventually that I'm who I am? That I'm the same dude with dreads that keeps robbing the same island every single chance that I get? Like, come on, bro. Y'all could add realism in the fact that they shoot me and I lose money, but I can fucking rob this guy all the time and do it the same exact way and do the same scope out mission. If anything, it would make more sense for me to just run the heist every time by doing the setups and then going straight to the finale instead of doing that scope out in the mission. Because what's really the point of the scope out mission? It doesn't really do anything, add any value, and most of all, it's not fun. It's stupid, it's boring. It felt cool at first when you did it the first time, but 10 runs in, I don't want to do that shit anymore. So now you're probably wondering, all that is cool and all, but when are we gonna talk about the heist? Relax, Phil. I was getting to that right now. See, if we're actually talking about the Kortz Center heist, right off the bat, we have a $17 million price tag, and that's at the lower end for this heist. So you get in the cutscene, get introduced to this student intern who's made to seem like he's like some really important character, or maybe like it was supposed to be a joke, like, look, Gen Z. And the humor, I feel like in some ways is kind of dead and uninspired because I feel like Rockstar is now in a place where they don't want to offend people as much, which I understand and respect because yes, humor does change and things become differently as time goes on, but this just felt forced. And I'm honestly still confused about what his role was. I mean, maybe he's the one that made the decoy painting when we stole the actual painting at the art center, but aside from that, like, I really don't get what this guy's purpose was. Shout out to the voice actor that got paid for this, but they probably wasted money spending it on this guy. They should have took his paycheck and spent it on making the heist a little better. But as soon as we purchased the art studio, and again, now we're $17 million in the hole, right? It's all gone. We get hit with all of these setup missions. And immediately this kind of pisses me off because yeah, I had to spend a lot of money. And it's like, all right, I got the money, I did it. I sold the stuff from my businesses. I grinded like maybe an hour or 2 hours and I got it. So now that I'm actually here after all the money that I just spent getting access to this heist, you're now expecting me to do a whole bunch of busy work. 10 out of 10, excellent heist, best update so far. Rockstar, you need to do more of this shit. This is the stuff that clearly has your players eating out of your fucking hands. Keep it up, man. This is some good shit. But hopefully, at the very least, the setups are fun and creative, right? Nope. The setups are the same bullshit we've seen and done before. Unnecessary and tedious drone side quests? Check. Killing some people and then going to one location just to be redirected to another location to steal some shit? Check. Thankfully, Rockstar, at the very least, got a little bit creative and they added a new minigame when breaking into the police station. But for all I fucking know, this might not even be new. And our favorite one is we get to go every single time to the same center to scope out the same studio. And this actually makes a lot of sense up front when you're doing it for the first time, because initially I was under the impression that they were going for some kind of Mission Impossible style heist. After all the setups are done, you get to do the actual heist. And even though you have an escape vehicle, I did kind of like that Rockstar was a little bit reasonable in letting us use our personal vehicles, although it's an extra step when you're escaping, like to call your personal vehicle. So you're better off just using the man chest bikes for this one. I played this heist with my wife and you can technically play it all stealth from what I understand, but there was a point when we got into the actual building and we did fuck up a bit and we set off the alarms. But it's funny because if we're talking about stealth in museums, I thought it was going to be on some Mission Impossible shit where we go all the way to the top of the roof, lower ourselves down with a rope, steal some diamond and then pull ourselves up. Like I thought we were going to be on some like Phantom Thieves, Mission Impossible cliche shit. I thought if they did that, that would have been fun and to an extent it would have been innovative. At least it would have been something different. Maybe we could have gotten some different mini games and But nah, it's the same layout and format as the Doomsday or the Dr. Dre shit or the Diamond Casino or the Cayo Perico. Like, it's all the same shit. That would have been just a little too fun. They gotta make sure they can milk us of every single cent first, because they want to 4 times what they spent developing GTA 6 before it releases, which again is insane, but not the topic of discussion right now. The laser shit was cool. We finally did something that's somewhat different here. Jumping and crouching felt extremely clunky though. First time I saw my wife crouch down, I thought that she died or like the game glitched out, because honestly, when have you ever seen anybody crouch like this? Retrieving the treasure is straightforward, and I can appreciate the fact that the main treasure isn't considered to be a part of like the duffel bag stuff, so it doesn't take up space and you don't lose money on it if you get shot. You do, however, lose money on secondary loot that you put in your bag. The way that it works is there's no splits this time around, so the host gets a vast majority of the money. So if you're coming in as a member, depending on how many people you have and like what you do and how you go about it, you're probably going to make anywhere from like 200k to like 700k, and the host is going to be like $2 million and up. All the money from the main loot goes to the host, and you split the secondary loot with your companion or your partners, however many people you have. If you don't have any, then obviously you take it all yourself. I did think that it was kind of odd because there's a lot of secondary loot to get, but your bag fills up so quick. So for 1 or 2 people, you're not going to be able to get much before actually leaving. Like, you might be able to get a few things. I was able to steal maybe like 2 or 3 paintings, and my wife maybe got like 1 or 2, and then yeah, we were basically full. You steal the treasure and eventually escape the museum, but before we continue talking about the heist, take a look at this scene again from the Pacific Standard one. There's something off about it, you say? Yeah, because it's actually the fucking Kortz Center heist. They reused the same scene and just changed the location. And I don't know, I'm not a game designer or anything, but if you look at the player models, they also look similar to how they looked in that heist back then. I feel like since we moved to like the new generation of gaming and the current consoles that we're on now, the player models and things have been updated. But if you look at these, it feels a little rustic. But anyways, to end the heist, you get on your escape vehicle, you lose the cops, and then basically everything is over. It's overall not the hardest heist in the world when you really think about it, and you also have the option of completing the elite challenges and or the buyers list, but I didn't even bother with that shit. On the first run as the host, you're making roughly $2 million, maybe a little more depending on what you stole. Someone with that information alone is probably saying, but Apple Psyche, that isn't even that bad. $2 million is a great payout for a heist. Until you see that there's a weekly cooldown on heist. Oh yeah, so basically you'll get the $2 million up front, but then if you decide that you want to play again that same week, you'll be paying 100k for the setup. Then you got to do the tedious ass busy work again, and then you'll only be making around 500k, which leaves you profiting roughly $400,000. This is so outrageous that you'd think that this was an April Fool's Day update. So if you decided that after spending $17 million on this heist, you wanted to play it enough times to break even, you'd have to do it around 8 to 9 times, and you'd have to wait a week in between each time you do it. Otherwise, you're just causing yourself unnecessary pain and suffering. But hey, at least after you blow all your fucking money and spend several weeks slaving away for it back, you can do some yoga on your roof. I think Rockstar knew a few players would probably contemplate suspicious activities that involve deleting your character from this world. We are friendly family. We are friendly family. I don't see myself pre-ordering or even playing GTA 6 at this current moment, to be honest with you. Will that be forever? Maybe not, because I think it'll be a good story mode at the very least. And I do still kind of have a level of curiosity where I want to check out GTA 6 online, but I do want to give it time because there's really no rush. But like I said in the beginning, I can't really blame them, because at the end of the day, the consumers create the demand for the product. So Rockstar is just going to keep feeding us scraps, and we seem to be completely fine with it, because even when we complain about it, we still accept it. Same shit that goes on in 2K, but you know, another video, another time. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Don't play this heist. Do something more productive with your time. Take care, and deuces.